Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for Thursday, January 4th. We are now through three trading sessions, and overall, I would say not great price action. You can kind of see where we're lining up here. Before we go into all the price action, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purpose only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. So that's first things first. But yeah, you can kind of look to see what's going on here. And over the last 5 days, you've got the small caps now down about 5%. You've got the Qs down 3.5%, and the S&P down 1.7%. Look at the ARK Innovation ETF too. That's down close to 10%. Very quickly, kind of that price action that was very strong the last couple months coming undone rather quickly. So what I will try to, so we'll talk about like just what's going on right now in the market, and then we will kind of go through and talk about how to handle this market for now, and my opinion, right? Everything that we're of course going through is my opinion, but here's what you've got. I said this earlier, because we were green in the Qs till about 11:30, I think. And then we started to kind of head lower and reverse. So you've got now 5 down days. Someone mentioned to me on Twitter, which is a good point. We had a number of weeks in a row. I think what was it, 8 weeks that we were 8 or 9 weeks, I guess, depending on the index, that was positive. So positive weeks. But yeah, this is five straight days of down, and down every day so far. So and so let's go through the price action in the indices, because I think that's number one, what I want to go through, and then we could talk about some sectors and so forth. But yeah, if you look at so this is S&P futures. Let me just open this up here a little bit. But I'm just looking at the 5-minute first, because just so that you can kind of see what's been going on for the day. But what I've been noticing, and I talked about earlier with members, is that these afternoons have so far this year have been particularly weak. So this is what, Tuesday, right? So the first day of the trading month. The beginning of the day was weak there too, but we bounced till about 12:30, right? And then after that, we just kind of continued lower. Now there was a buy. There was an MOC big buy imbalance that day, which lifted us up, that was a kick save. But if you go back to yesterday, right, there's the same thing. The high point was around 2 o'clock, and then we really moved lower, especially small caps yesterday. And then today, again, just a different, a little bit of a different format, but we hit the high. That was the top of value there at 11:15. Looked like there might be a decent day, and then things really kind of flipped around. I mentioned in the trading room that I didn't like this. Here's a break of the value area for the day. There's your retest and a failure. And once I started to see that, I'm like, ugh, I don't particularly like that. And then we spilled lower again. So so what is this price action telling you right now, right? And now we'll back up a little bit, right? So here's what we're looking at on the daily chart for S&P futures. Now we've lost the 20-day moving average. I mean, so the institutions are just selling right now overall more than anything else. There's obviously some rotation that's on the tape, but overall there's more sellers and that's pushing around the indices. And so we've broken this is the 20-day moving average on my chart. It's an exponential moving average. You could use a different moving average if you like, but for me, right, how I use the moving averages is basically just like I've used the value areas too. It's a level. To me, it's significant, and it allows me to make decisions based on that. So we have not basically found a footing so far. Even like I said, intraday, we could have reversed. Here's what we did on the 1-hour chart, which also gives me some perspective. But all of these indices, and the one that's been showing the relative strength is the Dow. But if you look at the S&P and the Qs and IWM, they're just trending down so far. So you kind of have to go back and remember what last year was like, and what I'm referring to is, not what happened in November and December, but remember what happened back in August, September, and in October, right? And about how to kind of protect and be a risk manager, right? And I know sometimes we get sidetracked with that. I think that there was a lot of FOMO with a lot of the rally that happened in November and December, but and breadth was expanding and so forth, and now it's changed a bit, and we've lost that upside momentum, and it remains to be seen where we're going to find a footing. Another thing, and this, I'm going to reference this a couple of times because we spent about 2 hours in the last night's webinar talking about the charts and so forth. And the one of the things is we just don't have nearby support, right? Which is potentially probabilistic, right? And I mentioned like, okay, well, the 20-day moving average could be something that we stop at, but I look at volume at price, and I look for demand levels and so on and so forth, and we really just don't have anything nearby. Now, that doesn't mean that the buyers can't step in at any time, but I like to know where there's where there's demand, right, based on that volume and price history. Now, the other thing is on the weekly chart, the S&P looks fine, right? I mean, we could actually fall quite a bit further and it would still be okay because we are above value for the new year. Qs, on the other hand, right, and this is some of what we went over in last night's valuary, but in last night's webinar, excuse me, but prices breaking into the value area, and that could trigger what's known as the 80% rule. Now, we went over this for about 10 minutes. I wouldn't necessarily be playing a move from one side of the value area to the other, but the takeaway for me, because it's a very big value area for the year, but the takeaway is if we break into the value area, we're doing something differently than the S&P, which is in price discovery. So remember, trying to be very open-minded about the situation that we're in 2024. It's a reminder that no one knows, what is going to happen. You just kind of have to roll with the punches and understand how things are unfolding and then making adjustments. But remember, last year the Qs were up like, I don't know, what, 53 or 55%. So, maybe that's going to change, and maybe that's just the short term, right, where that's going to revert back some. And don't forget, we're going to get earnings reports in a couple weeks too. That might change things, but for now, it's not great price action. So that's the best I can do is tell you just right now. It's when we don't have good price action and we don't have a nearby support level. Right. Well, we're getting closer to the bottom. That's 390.80 is something to pay attention to. And I think this VPOC down here lines up, just going from memory from last night. Look at 387. So, I mean, that could be where the Qs get to, basically. Right. And again, you look at the Qs there, and there's no evidence that price is doing anything other than trending lower for now. All right. Maybe there's a little bit of a RSI divergence there on the 1 hour, but not much, right? And then IWM, which really got smoked yesterday, was not the problem area today, but still, there's nothing to really hang your hat on here, we talked about, son of a gun, we talked about this towards the end of 2023, last couple of days, I talked about a head and shoulders pattern that really fulfilled. I thought that this might be where we would stabilize, which we did a little bit, but man, those 1 hour, and I had to block somebody on Twitter because they got mad at me. So like, hey, we went over the head and that this looked like a short-term head and shoulders, and they got really mad at me. And I'm like, well, I'm just giving you information that could maybe help you. You don't have to get nasty. But regardless, that head and shoulders played out even more than I thought it would, to the downside. So that's what we have for the indices. Again, I hate to do these videos, but and be so negative, but it's tough to really get excited about the way that the price action, there's a lot of fades, right? I was talking about earlier, I was like, okay, maybe it's just more straight up rotation, right? And if you look at the financials today, which were leading in the morning, now they still finished up on the day, but they got rejected, right? Another group that I was starting to think would be pretty interesting would be energy. And look at the candle on the XLE chart today, right? That just continued to sell off from the open today. So, this is what I'm referring to in terms of like making adjustments. So if you rotated a little bit into energy, thinking that that might be an area that catches some momentum, kind of like we've seen healthcare. That's a really ugly looking candle for the day. So it happens. We can't predict. I mentioned this 86 level. This was actually like my chart of the day yesterday. I was thinking that energy might, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, maybe an inverted head and shoulders, but we did not break the neckline here. Well, we did break it and we got rejected. So, it's just back to the drawing board. And that's what a little bit of this beginning of the year is about too, checking to see what groups are doing what. I took another target in XLV. This is a trade that I put on I want to say Monday, but we were off on Monday, on Tuesday. And I did take a target. I actually took it. I was trying to take a target at 140. I don't know if it hit there. Maybe it did hit there. I took a target at 139.90. But again, that's still very, this version point of control is just acting like a magnet, right? Price just doesn't want to get through that quite yet. Overall, the trend still looks very good here. But we'll see if it can stay above, even if it pushes back tomorrow. We'll see if that holds, right? Another name that I was just a lot of different things that I try to take note of. Look at what happened with Lamb Weston today, right? This is a name that had good earnings, and they were rallying pretty hard. Again, still, they finished up on the day, but that's a nasty rejection, right? And then a couple names that I was in today, and Lilly, I thought was a nice move, and you could see what I did today. I do show this, but I took a target right in the beginning of the day. Where was my first target? Oh, I took that yesterday. Yeah, so that's a nice target. Look at where, and it finished $15 down. So overall, like, the trend is still in place, but look at the price action today in Lilly, right? It reached a high, right around 10:30, kind of came in a little bit, had a little bit of a fight back, but look at the last hour. Right, it actually finished down on the trading session. So again, this is what you do when you have a difficult market like this. You have to take targets, in my opinion, right? And then MUSA, which I thought was a pretty good setup. This held the gains, and I'm still long this one, right? Even though it did take out that VPOC, you see that red line that just showed up there, right? So I took a healthy target on this morning. And we'll see. I think the weekly looks really good, but we've got one more day to go. So I finished in the green today, but certainly not as well as I was doing at around lunchtime today. So, so again, and I took off. I was holding on to a couple trades from that I started. Right at the end of last year, and I took them off today. And it's unfortunate. I do wish I would have taken them off, maybe yesterday, but I really, the cyber group is one of my favorite groups, but this Palo Alto could continue to fall to 265. Right. And that's possible. And even the 50-day moving average is down here. So we're below value. Again, I gave it a shot like all day. I gave it the benefit of the doubt that it's a strong name. But if it's not there, it's not there. And, that's what kind of separates sometimes, from if we do get more volatility. That's really what kind of separates, one of my main goals, as always, is just not to have big losers, right? And this was a starter position, by the way, that I got into. But again, I like to go over not just the names that that worked really well, but also, you've got to, make sure that you're being a risk manager as prices go down. And, I have an alert set on this one. Which is 290.79. I'm happy to get back involved in this one if it ends up turning the corner in a couple of days. If not, maybe this would be a greater spot to get involved, right? And and then the other thing I think that's important right now, and is usually the case when we get a case when there's a bout of volatility, or just like kind of price action like we're seeing, is just setting a lot of alerts. I was looking at Deckers today, no position, and I did this with a lot of my watch list. Just watch, setting alerts and watching for things to possibly, turn around a little bit. So that's the main thing. And any names that you really liked from last year, whether it's those cyber names or semi names or software names, put an alert, and this way you're not going to miss things, right? Because ultimately, that for Deckers, just for using this as an example. But if it breaks above 683, right, you're getting above these short-term moving averages and you're getting inside the value area, right? Don't need to pick the absolute bottom in anything, right? That's for more, I hate to say it, but amateur traders who are trying to pick the absolute bottom in things, right? If you've been trading for a while, typically what you want to see is buyers come back into it, right? And then start to get involved once you've got a little bit of confirmation that it stopped going down. So I'll leave it there. Other, bright spots for the day were the blockchain stocks. Not bad. Biotech still finished up 1.4%, right? We could look at this chart because I did re-add a position in this. And again, this is the number 2 attempt at going long biotech. And we'll see. For tomorrow, what biotech has to finish above is 88.62 and even better, 89, right? So, and it's basically right there, right? We got 40 cents of room, but we'll see if biotech wants to wants to hold here. All right, guys, that is it for today's video. Again, the name of the game is patience right now. It's tough to and I find it anyway, it's tough in the beginning of the year to like maintain to not get super aggressive in your mind. Like, I want to start you know looking at things and taking advantage of some opportunities, but you just have to you've got to stay what's the expression that I'm looking for? You got to stay on your toes, but you've got to stay grounded, right? In terms of just letting the price action come to you and being patient. Because again, we just started the year. There's no reason to do anything stupid, for lack of a better word, to start the year, because the more that some of these names come in, the better opportunities that they might be. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.